Welcome to Student, a series of animated calculus videos that will help you prepare for the AP exam. These videos were made by students for students.
So the topic today is 5.9, which is connecting a function, its first and second derivative. On the left is the graph of f prime in red, and on the right is the three questions we will be answering: the relative max of f of x, the point of inflection of f of x, and where f of x is concave up. Notice that the questions are talking about f of x versus the graph is about f prime. So you have to be careful and identify what the graph is illustrating and what the questions are illustrating before answering them. To find the relative max or min, you look at f prime, if it changes signs from negative to positive or vice versa. Because we're talking about the max, it will be changing from positive to negative. If you look at the graph, the blue box illustrates where there is a relative max on this graph. The justification is the relative max of f of x is at x equals the x-coordinate of the blue box because f prime changes from positive to negative. Now, point of inflections talk about f double prime or f prime's derivative. F double prime has to equal 0 and has to change signs. If you look at the graph, all of the green dots illustrate where there is a point of inflection. The point of inflection of f of x is at x equals the x-coordinate of the circle because f double prime is 0 and changes signs there. To determine concavity, you need to look at f prime and f double prime. For it to be concave up, f prime has to be increasing and f double prime has to be greater than 0. If you look at the graph on the left, all of the yellow arrows show where it is concave up. F of x is concave up at x equals the x-coordinates of the yellow arrows because f double prime is greater than 0 and f prime is increasing there. So here's a side note because I only covered 3 cases on this particular graph, but when you're looking for a relative min, f prime has to change from negative to positive. When you're looking for when it's concave down, double prime has to be less than 0 and f prime has to be decreasing. And just another side note, point of inflections can occur at cusps, so just be careful with that. Here is a multiple choice problem. On the left is a graph of f of x, and below it is the answers. When you're doing these types of problems, the first thing you need to do is identify each point. How do you find f of 1? Well, the graph is of f of x, so you just look what the y value is at 1, which in this case, it is 0. Next, you look at the slope of the line because the graph is of f of x and f prime is the slope of f of x. Well, the slope is decreasing, so that means f prime of 1 is less than 0. What does that mean? F prime of 1 is negative. In these types of problems, you don't need to find the actual value, you just need to know the signs. Next, you look for what the slope of the derivative is, or what its concavity is. In this case, f of x is concave up, which means f double prime of 1 is greater than 0. Well, that means that this point is positive. Then you just put it in order, negative 0, positive, and your answer is B. Okay, so now we're going to go over 2 parts in FRQ. On the left is g of x in red, and the question noted that g of x is the same thing as f prime. Part C asked what open intervals, if any, is the graph of f, both increasing and concave up, justify. Well, remember, concave up means f prime is increasing as well as f double prime is greater than 0. G of x is the same thing as f prime, indicated in the beginning of the question, so you just have to read the graph as if it was f prime. When doing so, you get that these 2 intervals with the yellow arrows are concave up, so you get 0 to 1, and 4 to 6. However, you can't just leave it like this. You have to write a justification. The graph of f is increasing in concave up from 0 to 1 and 4 to 6 because f double prime, which is g prime, is greater than 0, and f prime, which is g of x, is increasing there. On the bottom, I included the rubric from this part of the question from the actual AP test, and if you only wrote the black in the red box, you would only got one point out of this 2-part question. So make sure you justify when it says justify. It's very important. Here's the same question, just different part of the question. Find the x-coordinate of each point of inflection of the graph f and justify. Remember, the point of inflections occur when f double prime is 0 and changes from increasing to decreasing or vice versa. Well, you look at the graph and you look at the derivative of the graph and you find that x equals 4 is the point of inflection. However, you can't write this because you have to justify. The graph of f of x has a point of inflection at x equals 4 because f prime changes from decreasing to increasing at x equals 4. On the bottom is the rubric from the FRQ again, and it shows that the black you only get 1 point for, so make sure you justify when it asks you to.